Hello, and a very warm welcome. My name is Ahtisham Jan Butt, and you are watching my YouTube channel. A lot of students generally they used to WhatsApp and call, and they ask that, sir, we cannot afford any academy, we cannot afford even uh, a teacher, an individual teacher. So, will you please guide us how to prepare a subject? And this particular video is especially for those students who are from remote areas who cannot afford the fee of teachers or academies. And in today's video, I will gonna discuss about following subjects that how students can prepare these subjects. I'm going to touch international relations. Then I will give tips about current affairs, Pakistan affairs, history of USA, European history, and most importantly, in the mid, I will going to discuss about essay. So keep watching the video and do subscribe the channel as well. And hopefully, this small effort of mine would definitely benefit students. So coming towards the very first subject, international relations. International relations happens to be it becomes a compulsory subject, nearly compulsory subject, because the students, bulk of the students, nearly 80 to 90% students, they have no choice. Either they have to opt international relations or they have to opt political science. And bulk of the students they opt for international relations. So how to prepare? There are few misconceptions associated with the paper of international relations, and generally teachers and academies they try to skip that portion, and because the portion which I am referring to is very relevant for students of international relations, and why academies or individual teachers they just skip that portion. Why? The reason is because the portion I'm referring to is quite lengthy, and teachers and academies they can't afford extensive lectures on that. So first and the foremost thing for students to understand that international relations as an academic discipline, you need to focus on three aspects before starting your preparation of international relations as a subject in CSS. And these three things, generally teachers and academies, they don't focus. First and the foremost thing, be very much sure, and that's not my view. You can come across this view in the book of Henry Now, Perspectives on Iyer. And if you don't have the book, you can download it, or you can WhatsApp me on this number, and I will send you the book. And in the very first chapter, you will come across the heading, and the same another book, Essentials of International Relations by Karen Miggs. She also came up with the same argument. A number of other books, even Robert Jackson books, Traditional and Modern Approaches in International Relations. So all these scholars, they have a consensus in which our academies and our teachers, they generally overlook it or they satire it or they ridicule it. Reason so, because the portion is so lengthy that they can't afford. They have to complete a session and then they have to start another session. So that's why. And that's the reason in the recent past that students couldn't able to understand what really international relations is all about. So there are three components of international relations which you must be very much sure that you have completed those portions before formal study of your syllabus. And the very first thing which I'm referring to in Henry No and in the book Essentials of Iyer and in a number of other books is the role of history. Yes, the role of history. In international relations, even in master's level, in BS programs, you would come across a paper in international universities with the name International History. Now, why they are teaching this paper in the discipline of international relations? In Pakistan, universities or colleges, they don't label it as international history, but they label it as something like interwar period in a semester or Cold War, stuff like that, or specifications of Cold War. So you must be very much clear that you must have an understanding of international history. There are a number of books for international history because international history ain't all about history. It's not like this. International history, rather, is about correlationing, the correlationing of developments. So there is a difference between discipline of history and international history as a sub-discipline of IR. So be very much sure that you have a strong grip on the international history. And the book generally I recommend for this portion is International History of the 20th Century and Beyond. It's by Anthony Best. If you don't have the book, if you can't download it, just WhatsApp me. I will send you the book. And what you will do out of that book, that any student do read chapter number 1, chapter number 2, 7, 9, 11, 20. These, I'm sorry, these 6 chapters would cover First World War till end of Cold War. That is sufficient. You may refer to any other book, but not to go for any book of history, but specifically go for a book which maintains that correlating of developments. So merely reading a book of history which would give you any causes of Cold War, then effects, then impacts, okay, you can go for it, but it won't help you in the study of international relations and as an academic discipline. So go for a book of international history that would develop your correlationing ability, the correlationing of developments. What was happening in UK in 1919 at the same time? What was its impact on Russia in 1919? What was its impact in France in 1990? So correlationing, sorry, enhances your ability when it comes to theory application. So correlationing is a must. It's a misconception which the academies and our teachers have floated in the CSS market. Henry No says his book is a reference book. He's a renowned scholar. He says that unless and until you don't have an understanding of history, you don't have an understanding of correlationing, how can you apply theory? For instance, if I would confront a question, simple question, discuss the causes of Syrian crisis. Let's say, so whether I would write merely some causes out of any history book, should I? No, I have to attempt this question by giving respect to the discipline of international relations. Yes, I do have an understanding that my answer would come in this context, that what is the views of the liberals pertaining to Syrian crisis. Okay, they would come up with the uneven distribution of power, let's say, uneven distribution of power. Okay, they would come up with a regional level of analysis, competitive environment in the region. Okay, understandable. They even can come up with the anarchic structure prevalent in, I'm sorry, I'm going in a pace just to complete things speedily. Anarchic structure prevalent in Middle East. Okay, and we come towards liberalism. How liberals would see. Okay, they would see it, that's an absence of interdependence because of the unidimensional uh, uh, economic methods across the Middle East and its impact definitely on Syria as well. Okay, then we'll come towards absence of rule of law, or you can say liberties, civil liberties, name it, stuff like that. But what I would write in this particular header, I do know how to apply theory, but what I would write in it, I need the role and I need to understand the role of history. This is the base. If I don't know about history of Syrian crisis, I don't have to reproduce it in, no, I don't have to. But I must have an understanding of and this realization of role of history. So the very first thing, hopefully I have cleared this thing, that the role of history is very much relevant, important in a discipline of international relations, and you must study at least these 6 chapters from, I will again write it down, 1 to 7, 9, 11, 20 from Anthony West, or you may choose any other reference. Uh, John Ballas has written it. Steve Smith and John Ballas, their editions, they have almost 3 chapters on international history. So you can also read it down from there. Uh, but do understand this thing. And normally, students, teachers, academies, they overlook this thing, and this students start preparing for syllabus, and they assume that if they would uh, memorize and understand the features of a theory or points of any concepts, so their preparation is worthy enough. It's not like the case. The base of the discipline of international relations lies in its philosophy and in history. Make sure, be no excuse. Second thing, I'm hopeful that you are very much clear. If you are not clear, but in this point, my number is given. You may contact me, you may WhatsApp me. If there is any question, you may send me a voice note. Most welcome. If I would find time, I would definitely reply. Second thing, I'm sorry, it's getting very worse as far as the whiteboard is concerned. So first thing is role of history. Now, second thing, how to prepare theory. How to prepare theory. We're coming towards next page. How to prepare Iyer theory. So, ingredient number one, that's definitely international history. If you don't have the understanding of international history, you cannot understand international relations theory. Never. So, first thing first, that's it. You must have the understanding of international history. But then, how? How you would prepare or you would understand international relations theory? Normally, when we study books, when we refer to books, all graduate level books and research reference books, in nearly all books, you would come across uh, a single chapter on, let's say, realism. Within the single chapter, you would come across classical realism, you would come across structural, then variations of structural, and then you will come across neoclassical. Same is the case, you would come across a chapter of liberalism, and within liberalism, you will come across major three variations in some books: liberal internationalism, adjoined with liberal idealism, liberal institutionalism, and in some books, you would also come across the same pattern. They would come with idealism, then neoliberalism, then variations of neoliberalism. That's bookish, you know. The books have been written in this style. A student of international relations cannot understand international theories in this sequence. So be very much sure that if you want to prepare Iyer theory, you have to prepare it in a methodological context. In the study of theory, you focus on three aspects: ontology, epistemology, and methodology. Largely, the books are written in, in an epistemological or in an ontological context. Books by the senior professors or books for graduates, it is generally agreed upon in the West that the methodological basis of students are clear. So they don't have to address methodological context separately. But as new students, have no base of international relations. And I'm again referring to the very first point. Okay, you have covered history, you know basic understanding of international history. Now you must not start reading or preparing in an ontological or epistemological context. Rather, focus on methodological context. The first methodology, which happens to be traditional approach, be very much sure that you know about what is traditional approach. Traditional approach gave birth to two theories in international relations, popularly known as idealism. In few books, you would come across the word liberal idealism, stuff like that, and classical realism. Yes, this is a shock for some of the students who have not prepared international relations theory in a methodological context. The very basis of realism, classical realism, and the very basis of idealism, traditional approach. Traditional approach was challenged by the advent of scientific revolution in international relations. Now, scientific revolution in international relations, is in different forms, but let us be very much clear and in easy context. We are only referring to one aspect. We're not referring towards rational choice or other aspects. We are referring towards behavioralism. You must be very much clear that what is behavioralism in international relations. And then behavioralism. Behavioralism gave you neoliberalism, neorealism. Again, same methodology, different theories. And when you end over here, you would come across that out of nowhere, you have prepared three major debates of international relations. You have prepared idealism versus realism, traditional approach versus behavioral approach, and neo debate. In some books, you would come across the word inter-paradigm debate by linking new Marxism in it as well. So be very much clear that you are preparing theory in a methodological context, not in an epistemological or ontological context. That is very much important. Then you would go towards alternative approaches. Alternative approach. You would come across the words of post positivist approach. You would also come across the word in few books like interpretive approach. Don't scare yourself by the terminologies. Meaning is essentially the same. So, under this post positivist interpretive approach, all the institutional analysis approach, rational choice, all these, and the behavioralism, all are denied in post positivist approach. You would come across feminism in it. You would come across different variations of Marxism in it. You would come across somewhere in between these previous approaches and the new approaches, you would come across constructivism, partially positivist, partially post-positivist. And you will of course come across postmodernist approach. By the end of this, I can assure you that you will be at home for discussing positivist versus post-positivist approach in Iyer. And I can assure you, if you can understand this particular fourth debate in international relations, it means that you are methodologically strong enough. The four great debates in international relations, two debates, they are the debates or the rivalry or a fight between methodologies. Yes, you have two debates related to idealism versus realism, theoretical. You have a debate of neo debate. In few books, you would come across the word inter-paradigm. Okay, but what about the others? Traditional versus behavioral approach, positivist versus post-positivist approach. It's methodological debate, not a theoretical. So if you are not at home with methodology, sorry to say, you are not in a good condition to attempt any question related to a theory. So this is the second aspect. When I would say how to prepare IR theory, my personal recommendation is rather moving from an epistemological ontological context, study from methodological context. So that would make it easy, comprehensible, and you'll be in a better position to apply theory. Theory application is not possible. It cannot be possible, can never ever be possible unless you don't have understanding of the issue, international history, even the contemporary context as well. If you don't have the understanding of the event of the development, plus you must very much be clear on the methodological lines. Then you will be able to apply theory. So these two things are very relevant as far as your preparation is concerned. Do not go for the ideas and do not buy those ideas or adopt those ideas that uh, just start states. You would start preparing your syllabus. That would be difficult. For instance, let me assure you one thing. If you start preparing syllabus, then in the very first section of your syllabus, there is a topic, evolution of international society. Read it out if you are studying international relations for the first time. Just read it out. Or even I would say scope and significance of IR. Read it out in any book, in Pio Ghosh, let's say, in Goldstein, or in any other book. That would be sheer cramming. International society, idea of international society. You cannot understand it unless and until you would not be in a position to understand systems approach. Because systems approach, how to undermine system approach, how to tackle system approach, this idea emerged, international society. And how system approach was inducted in Iyer, that was the influence of scientific revolution. Again, methodological. So you must have an understanding of scientific revolution, its impact, first impact in Iyer system approach, and then its challenge by Hurleball in the form of the idea of international society. And it is very much in the very first part of the syllabus. How on earth you can understand it? You would simply cram. How can you understand this discipline right in the very first time? That what is the scope and significance of IR when you have not absorbed IR? So go for it at the end of the syllabus. I hope I have make my mind clear, your mind clear, sorry, and mine as well, because there was a burden on me that number of students have been contacting me to help us to guide them how to prepare individually by not referring towards any academy or a teacher. Now the third thing, the most important thing. Look, gentlemen and ladies, you're not supposed to go for any degree of international relations, are you? No, you don't. So you have to get marks. In order to get marks, past papers are very important. So, third thing for me is your practice of past papers. These are about 70 questions, and that's from 2016 onwards till 2000. Each year there are two papers, 14 questions each. 5 years, there are 70 questions. You would come across very few repetitions. You would come across a repetition of nearly 15 questions, not questions, but topics. 15 times you would come across this repetition. So still, you would have 60 topics, and somewhere nearly 55 to 60 topics. Prepare them. Get them checked from your teacher. When I teach international relations, so my idea is simple enough. I teach international relations first I want my students to understand international history. You can find these lectures on my YouTube channel as well. There are 7 lectures, although there are 10 lectures, but I have merged some lectures, and there are 7 lectures relating to the international history. That would help you. That would also help the students of political science. Then I go for theories and concepts. Then I go for foreign policies of major countries and make sure there is no such thing, theory application. It's not something that would come out of the heavens or the skies. You would be in a position to apply theory if you would follow the same line. For instance, you confront a question in the paper, explain the idea of power, also discuss ingredients of national power. Okay, now the second part, it's quite easy part. You have to write it down. Ingredients of national power, no issue. You will write tangible and you will write intangible. Okay, no issue. But when it comes to explain the idea of power, are you going to write just you would define 2, 3 definitions? Just no, this is not an approach. You would start, of course, you would give 1 or 2 definition, but you would come up with the idea that how realist they view idea of power, how liberals view idea of power. What is the idea of power in constructivist debates? This is a form of theory application, students, that you are writing about power, you are explaining the idea of power. He didn't ask you define the power, explain the idea of power. So how realists view it, how liberals view it, how constructivists view it, how even the feminists, power as masculinity, how they view it. So this, when the examiner report says that students don't have the idea or they don't have the capacity to apply theories. So theory application isn't about that you would apply theory on any development, merely not specific. Yes, you have to apply, but it is not all about development or event, you know. No, all the concepts, all the concepts, be it foreign policy, be it power, be it national interest, be it sovereignty, be it nationalism, be it war, be it deterrence, particularly strategic realism, studies in detail about deterrence, and so on, and most importantly, security, by how realists view security, how liberals view security, how constructivists view security. So theory application is not something that would come out of the heavens. If you have a proper understanding of international history, proper understanding of theories and methodologies, then concepts, then you would be in a better position, in the best position, I would say, to apply theory in any question, depending upon the nature of the question. Don't apply theory across the board, make sure, because you would confront questions relating to peacemaking. It's a portion, it's 100 marks, subject in international relations, peacemaking, conflict resolution. They have their own theories, own approaches. You have, international organizations and plus institutions. So they have their own uh, jargons, their own framework. So you have to give respect. Don't have to inject theory in each and every question. Be very much sure. I'm planning to upload discussion on past papers as well. So that would also help you. So your basic understanding of history, your understanding of theory in a methodological route, and then your practice of past papers. Job done. You would score marks. What about objectives? There, when you would study theory and the concepts in a methodological context, you would repeatedly open books, you would repeatedly read references of the books. Objective consists sometimes four, five, six names of the books. When you would read international history thoroughly, I can bet you that you would score, around about 10 to 12 marks out of that as well. Four to five definitely books. And then, of course, your contemporary context as well. Read good online sources. Even if you are reading quality newspapers, you will come across a lot of data. You don't have to write data, but at least for your objectives up to some extent. So for me, that is crystal clear. Now, one book solution. Is there any one book solution? No, dear. There is no one book solution in international relations. Never. You have to read quality material put into each section. That's a fact. Recommended books are mentioned in the syllabus. You can opt for those. If you're not finding any book, there are groups of Iyer and you can easily download from there. But do not, I would again repeat, do not, never ever, never ever rely on one book. Even if you are reading theories, go for 3 to 4 sources, what they are saying. So that's, I hopeful that I have made my point very much clear. Still, you have any doubt, you can send me a voice note or a message. Voice note in a way that I usually, when I'm driving or have some time, so I just click it and uh, I respond in a voice note as well. So it's up to you. So this is the way to deal with international relations, and I am specifically focusing this lecture. The focus of my lecture is on those students who cannot afford. Those who can afford, they may go everywhere, but be smart. Now, I would come to the second paper, current affairs. There must be a balanced approach while preparing current affairs. There is no single book on current affairs. No single book. Current affairs is a paper of your journal reading, general understanding. You don't have to go with the, you know, mm, flowery language or concepts and theories be amalgamated in your paper. No, there must be a balanced approach. A balanced approach consists of global topics, regional topics, and domestic topics. At least minimum, you must have at least 10 topics. You prepared well with data, with case studies, with examples, name it anything. But a balanced approach is very much relevant. Being a new student, students find it difficult that which topics are important and which topics are not important. So students used to consult teachers, students used to consult seniors. So it's a fact. Students used to consult various social media forums because they don't know. Let me have uh, water. A glass of water is life for a person like me. Logi. Now, so there must be a balanced approach. How to prepare? Let me tell you straight what how I teach. When I teach global topics, what I do, depending upon the nature of the topic, I read Council for Foreign Relations. So Foreign Affairs magazine, how on that global issue I would come across the US perspective because Foreign Affairs magazine is not officially, but it is recognized as a tool of United States foreign policy. Suggestions incorporated in foreign affairs magazines are worth a read, you know. So I normally go to Foreign Affairs magazine, how the United States view that global issue. Then I go for Asia Times, and Asia Times online is a very good source because even Joseph Nye and number of other Western scholars they write in Asia Times online. Then I see what is the other side of the coin. That's my style. I'm telling you. So I would get two to three different opinions out of. I will go for any. If I would not find something striking, something other, then I would go for any research articles. Research articles. And when I search for research articles, I prefer academicians, not journalists, not diplomats, but academicians. And then if I would come across any other thing related to that topic, okay, fine, very good. This is how it is. You may consult other sources as well, all other sources. There are a number of other sources. National Interest is a very good source. Atlantic Council is a very good source. Berlin uh, Council is a very good source. You come across number of articles on ResearchGate as well. So that's how I prepare global topic. I mm, create an idea, and around that idea, I prepare a topic and then I deliver. What about regional? When I say regional, it's related to South Asia, Grand South Asian region, Indian Ocean, Afghanistan, neighboring countries of Pakistan, outside South Asia like Iran. So I better focus on books. I take ideas from books and then I apply those ideas on regional topics. For instance, if you would confront any topic on CPEC or BRI, suppose there are numerous articles. There are numerous articles in newspapers, research articles. You would come across, hell number of uh, publications on social media. But if you read Andrew Small, if you read Michael Kugelman, if you read into the mind of Xi Jinping, you would come across all the way a, a new blend of criticism as well as prospects. So even in the case of Kashmir, even in the case of India and Pakistan, security dilemma, prisoners dilemma in the context of Afghanistan, Pakistan. So I prefer books, and from that book I derive the idea and then I apply it on the situation. So this is how I prepare because regional topics, nearly all students in CSS when they would confront any regional topic in the current affair, they would definitely write it. So you have to be smart, and you have to come up with something new, not very difficult or theoretical, but in an easy word, in an easy way. And then the domestic. Now, domestic topics, make very much sure, do not refer newspapers. I have, well, you have given data, and then in a bracket you have written a name of a newspaper. Never. Statistical data, always rely on statistical division reports, always rely on your economic survey, or your quarterly reports of State Bank, whatsoever, your household integrated economic survey, SDPI. So go for official data. Although official data, sometimes we say it's a maneuvered one, whatsoever, but do not refer newspapers in your question. Never. You may, absorb ideas out of the articles. Go for a good study of the good articles from your domestic publications. You would come across number of articles, online, newspapers. So you have to create a balance between these three areas. And I hope what I do, I prepare 16 from here, 16 from here, 16 from here, and make sure when you are preparing near about 30 to 40 topics from domestic and regional. So these topics are also part of your park affairs syllabus. You don't have to prepare separately for park affair paper. From here, and again, as far as current affair is concerned, do not go for practice of past papers because uh, if there is a question of 2016, so the conditions at that time were different. If you have to write that question, answer to this question, then mold that question, the nature of the question for in the contemporary context, then go for it. Otherwise, don't. Park affairs. Generally, uh, as far as park fair is concerned, the students call me and they say that you charge only for current affairs, 7,000 for current affairs. So it's a huge amount and we cannot afford. So I find it very difficult to convince them that, see, I'm also teaching Pakistan affairs. You are not noticing it, but I am teaching it. Pakistan's foreign policy, relations with other countries, neighboring countries, issues, domestic issues, regional issues, they all are part of Pakistan affairs. So if you prepare it in a scientific manner, in a methodological manner, so bulk of your Pak affair is clear, very much clear. So when you are studying Pak affair, just simply ignore domestic issues and regional issues. Focus on only two things: your freedom movement. I can assure you, I can bet you that my lectures on YouTube are sufficient enough to create an understanding or develop an understanding on freedom movement. But still, if you want to read it, I would recommend that K.K. Aziz book on making of Pakistan, a study in Muslim nationalism. Now make sure when students study freedom movement, what they do, they and the teachers and the academies, they recommend books of history again. Pakistan Affairs is not a paper of history, even its freedom movement. You are not supposed to write history. You have to link those developments with the evolution of Muslim nationalism, the cause of Muslim nationalism. And the best book for that is KKZ's The Making of Pakistan, a study in Muslim nationalism. So don't go for pure history books while studying Pakistan affairs. So freedom movement plus generally we say post partition. There is no such thing as post partition. It's a vast general generic terminology. All domestic topics of Pakistan, all regional topics which we have discussed. See here, this is also post partition. Domestic issues of Pakistan, regional challenges, regional issues, blah 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 blah. However, focus on constitutional and political developments plus amendments. You know, and for that, I would recommend Hamid Khan. Hamid Khan is the best book. You don't have to go anywhere else. This portion you will come across two questions, minimum two questions in any paper, minimum. Sometimes more than two. Freedom movement and your constitutional political development. You would come across two questions in Pakistan affairs. And why students are not getting marks? Because they study it in a very narrow historical dimension, study it in a legal dimension, in a nationalistic context. And the rest of the paper, it comes from these regional issues and domestic issues. You can check it out and you can challenge me. Because no, sir, it's not like that. You may come across three questions as well as from freedom movement and constitutional development, but that's good. So the preparation of Pakistan affairs is very much, easy, and it's a short syllabus because 70% of the area, if we see papers from 2016 to 2020, you would come across 70% of the questions. They their nature is the domestic problems of Pakistan. They are asking for solutions or regional issues and asking for regional solutions. So Pakistan affairs gets quite easy and short, but not that short. Making of Pakistan is one hell of a book, and you must be very broad-minded and very active while reading it, while noting down your points. So, so this is again. If you have an issue, you have my number. You have my uh, comment section. You can comment over here. Now, coming towards European history. When it goes to European history, never ever go for making notes. Never. Read, contextualize, just write down points. European history is a history of correlationing. Ideal example. Although it's an history, but an history of correlationing because you are studying a history of, at a time, you are studying a history of 4 to 5 major powers. So, how to prepare it? Simple. 1789 till 1815, fall of, I would say fall, yeah, fall of Napoleon. Read it from any textbook. Make your points. Write down your points. Any textbook, any, but not, heavy book, any textbook. Well, let's say we say Raghuveer Dayal textbook. Then read the same portion from David Thompson. You would find yourself in a new world. And if you can, then read Stephen Jay. On some aspects of European history book name Europe since Napoleon. Read this phase. Don't run fast. Just read this phase as a textbook and then David Thompson or Stephen G. Then come to the other portion, 1815 till 48. Concert of Europe to Metternich system to the revolutions of 30s and 40s, you know, same pattern. Then go for 1848 onwards to unification of Italy and Germany, 1871, let's say. Again, apply this thing. This is the most suitable and be very much clear. If you are clear up till unification of Italy and Germany, you would come across minimum 3 questions in your European history papers in the past papers of CSS. So go with it. In the next portion, if you want to go 1871 till 1949, World War, and end of the World War, then interwar period specifically separate, 1939. Then, of course, Cold War. So prepare European in certain compartments. Absorb the idea, note down, and if you have a player of a good company, then discuss it with your company fellows, your friends. Discuss it. Just throw your idea out of your mind and whatever you have understood. ये हुआ, ये हुआ, ये हुआ, फिर ये हुआ, फिर ये हुआ, फिर ये हुआ. That would help you in your international relations paper as well, the correlationing, the ability to correlate. And then the last, history of USA. Well, I personally believe that Gary Nash or Alan Brinkley is sufficient. Anyways, students, don't listen to teachers like me, but it's my moral obligation to upload such a lecture for general guidance and for specifically for those students who can't afford. So, how to prepare US history? From the advent till war of independence. Read it, absorb it, same pattern. There are a lot of other books, but I fancy Alan Brinkley. You may refer to another book, or Advent. And in this case, again, go for a textbook. And then go for Alan Brinkley. This is one portion. As far as second portion is concerned, so that portion starts from Constitution, and from Constitution all the way till Civil War. This is the second portion. Again, same. Then from Civil War to World War. Progressive movement, industrialization, urbanization, and a lot of as short notes of dollar diplomacy, the ye, the wo, the sab kuch. Then after interwar period, of course, and interwar period, there are two topics important in US history, that is Great Depression and New Deal. Prepare them well. Be very much sure that do not fall victim or prey to, sorry, I would say victim, do not fall prey to this narrative that US तो IR ही है या IR हो गया तो US हो गया, particularly Cold War. No, just open few pages of Alan Brinkley during Cold War, you will come across that the historical narrative of Cold War is something altogether different from international relations. That's why students are not getting marks in USA, because they are not focusing on a preparation that would be historical. I have uploaded another book related to foreign policy and all other designs in a historical context. I have uploaded in my group. Group name on social media is Ahtisham Jan Butt. You may subscribe that group as well, and you would come across that book. If you don't find that book, my number is mentioned in the very first page. You can WhatsApp me. I will send you the book. Alan Brinkley, I can't send. It's a huge book. It's more than uh, you know 100 MB or stuff like that. But the Google Drive share link share is uh, present in this group. You can download it from there. Be very much sure that in a paper of history, always try to use quotations. At least one, at least. And that quotation must not be more than of one line or two line, one or two lines, so that you can easily memorize such quotations. Do not play with examiner by creating quotations. It's not a paper of LLB. Examiner is experienced enough. If you cheat him or her, he will hamper your future. So these are the things related to Iyer, related to history papers, related to current affairs, related to park affairs. And now I would come to essay. I'm sorry to say, my statement would might offend English teachers, but essay is not merely about English. Yes, you do know, do uh, the consultancy of an English teacher to check your English, to coherence, how to write a topic sentence and how to then to prove it, relevance, coherence, language, grammar, proper use of punctuations. Okay, fine. But I beg pardon from the English teachers. But what about the ideas? If you don't have the ideas, what you will write? Merely writing English, flowery English, without any event, without any argument, without any example to substantiate. You need ideas. Read. There is no specific, text for essay to read. So your journal reading, general understanding. Develop your own thinking on issues. Whenever you confront a statement, so there must strike an idea in your mind that through this statement, I am deducing this idea, and now I will prove that idea. I will not go into the detail, but the reading is important. But let me assure you one thing. Let us assume that you are writing an essay on what topic, whatever may be the topic. Mm, let's say uh, water crisis and national unity. I guess it's an essay from past papers. So what students normally do, those students who have no, proper guidance, and even after guidance, because they haven't experienced the importance of idea, they just focus on their English. So what they would do, they would write about water crisis separately, they would write about national unity separately, and then try their unsuccessful tries to connect them and to come up with certain suggestions. Flawed practice. Water crisis and national unity. Unless and until you don't know the intensity of these two variables, unless and until you don't have the data, you don't have the arguments, you cannot write it. First and the foremost thing. That's what I believe. And the second, make sure this water crisis and this national unity, the more important word is and. It's your ability, how you would connect it. That and would generate the idea. You're reading arguments. The more arguments you have, the more ideas you have, you would be in a better position to come up with a suitable connotative meaning for this end. That's how it is. But if I would write on it, the immediate idea would strike in my mind that would be mismanagement, governance. There are issues of governance that have created crisis, ultimately, subsequently, leading towards national disunity. Now, how would I write it now? Your ability to raise question. I would not write a detail on what is water crisis. No, I would not write in what are the ingredients of national unity and stuff like that. No, I would brainstorm it. I would do extensive brainstorming. But when I would come write my essay, there comes my ability to raise question and to answer them. How? Governance. Sorry. How water crisis affects national unity. How? I would answer it. How? Then I'll come towards some case studies. If I have reading, how countries they overcome that water crisis. I'm sorry, it's the last page. I cannot move to further slides. 20 is the limit in Zoom. How countries addressed it. Some case studies. If I would have a case study of Netherlands and others, I would incorporate it. What options are available? Then I would come towards that part. Three main headers with subheadings and a coherent essay. Make sure essay is not just writing down the crammed version, it is your creation. The you are creating something. Keep it rational. Keep it simple. What students do and what unfortunately teachers do, they provide a thesis statement to students with flowery English, or even students, they write such an extensive and detailed thesis statement encompassing all aspects, but then they don't manage it properly. They're unable to justify it. Make it short, simple, two, three liners, not referring to any you know uh, a galaxy of words and stuff like that. Just don't do it. I would love to go for another two, three examples, but I'm sorry, I'm short of pages. And maybe this one I can write it down over here. For instance, you would come across an essay like gender equality is a myth. Let's say, suppose. So what you will do? Normally, what students do, they write about the problems faced by women in Pakistan. They write down problems and then gender equality can address these problems. No, you must have the understanding of the idea of gender equality, its characteristics, its jargons, its the theoretical contextualization of the idea, the gender sensitive lens associated with the idea. And when in social senses you would come across something as a myth or a reality, you have to write about the advantages or the disadvantages. Gender equality is a myth in Pakistan, I would say. How? I have to write about the disadvantages, the absence or the negligence to create a gender parity, creating disadvantages. In which sphere? Blah, 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 blah. How some countries effectively they are moving more and more inch closer towards gender parity. Although still the highest rate is not more than of 84, oh sorry, 87%. Still 12 point something 13% gender inequality is very much there across the globe and even in developed countries in Scandinavian countries. So how the how the patterns what patterns sorry they are following, and then we'll come towards the third options for Pakistan. Suppose so I would come up with again three major headers, subheaders, but coherent, relevant, with data, with logic. I would prove it. Let me give you another example. If I have some page, let me see if I have some left. Okay, okay, that's good. That's here. Feminism is not really a third world issue. I'm sorry, I'm writing it in this to save uh, space. Feminism is not really a third world state issue. Yeah. So what students did, bulk of the students. Let me come towards Urdu because that would be you know uh, I'm not questioning the ability of those students who have written it in all the way different way, but how we perceive a statement. Feminism is not really a third world issue. Feminism third world का issue नहीं है. हाँ third world के तो और issues हैं. So they deviated from the topic. The very first thing that feminism is not really the focus is on really a third world issue. Oh, feminism is a global issue. It's not really a third world issue. However, the problems faced by women in the third world are different from the problems women in the developed world are confronting. So, how women in developed world successfully addressed issues? Issues those who are in third world. Here it is an issue of health, property rights. Here is an issue of education, jobs, blah 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 blah. How they addressed it, and now what are their problems? वो तो यहाँ से बहुत दूर है अभी. How to address the issues of third world? So feminism is not really a third world issue. It's a global issue. But the problem of women in developed world is different, and the problems of women in the third world are different. Let me give you another example. I just gave an assignment to my student, and she attempted that essay in the last, you know, examination, and then she came to me. The topic was, I guess, yes, the topic was women universities as agent of change. And students said, yes, women university as agent of change, create change. It do this. It does this, does blah blah. Without any data, without any argument, and you have written an essay on women universities. Women universities data. Where was the first women university found? What was the development prior to women universities in that areas? After. What was the GDP of those areas prior to women universities? After. What about the labor force prior and after? And if even they are not going for any labor force, what about the maternal mortality rate, infant mortality rate after? What about research and development after previous? Do you have any case studies where women universities across the globe they were really an agent of change? Do you have any? If you don't, what suggestions you would come up with, either in the case of Pakistan or just to say at the global level? It's just merely one aspect. I'm not referring to the moralistic side of the topic. That is also a part of it. I'm referring towards the statistical side of the topic over here. So be very much clear, my dear, that idea matters a lot. So read and read good material. You can absorb it. If you can't absorb it, just discuss it with your fellow, with your friend. So these are the things, G, which I want to clear. I'm hopeful that I've uh, communicated efficiently and effectively. If not, then please pardon me. I can't uh, express myself uh, more than that. And all the very best of luck, G. And may God give you happiness and succeed success in your life. All the very best. Thank you very much.